my Marco Rubio water drink. We're live.
All right. I'm just kind of waiting it to confirm, but yes, we are live and.
Put my phone on silent. I'm so desired these days.
Nice. All right, Richard. I'm Dusty Coiner from TrackDaz. This is Richard Stanboli from Monster Energy Attack Yamaha. What's up, man?
Attack Performance Yamaha Racing. Get the name right, man. Remember Greg White called it a stupid team name?
No, I don't.
Oh, he said that once on one of his podcasts.
What a dick.
I let him have it.
No.
That's all right.
I bet you let him have it.
Yeah, we get along good though. He's a big
goofball.
Shoot a bow and arrow like Cupid.
He's got the same fancy haircut that we have. So
yeah, no, we're in the same haircut club.
Oh yeah. Yeah, see, so you're sitting there and you've got the big number one behind you and another bike. What's going on with that other bike over there?
Oh, that's doing a little fix up after a little mishap.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That was Thursday first thing. Well, not first thing. It was the third session, I think. Came back a little bent up.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that. You know, how'd the RIdge go? I mean, I know you guys got to ride there a month ago because I was there with you, which is cool.
Yeah, you were factory dude for a day or something, or 2 days?
Yeah, I got to be a Superbike guy, right? Superbike rider for 2 days or
something like that.
Whatever
you called it. Yeah.
Yes. Dude for a day times 2.
Yeah.
So you guys got to practice on Thursday this time. That was a little different, yeah?
Yeah, because they had like a little test and tune for the teams that didn't make it to the tests that we had set up.
Mm-hmm.
We invited a lot of people, but I guess it was just a little bit of a haul for them, so they didn't go. And yeah, so it was us and M4 that went the test, if you recall, and a few other little sprinklings of local guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was we were there pretty ready. You know, all we want to do was kind of shake down our bikes, but one rider was trying to break the track records on day one.
Yeah, you said he kind of sent it to the weeds a little bit, yeah?
Just a little. This is why we're going to be here late for the next few days.
Oh, really? It's like that.
Thanks, Jake.
Sorry, Jake. Throwing you under the bus a little bit, but not really sorry. Like what turn did he crash in?
1-2 area. Yeah, so you're in there about 200K, and they slow down about 100 and something K, not miles per hour.
Right.
And so yeah, so you're in there about 120, come out of the chicane, and then you slow down about, I don't know, 65 or so. So yeah, I guess you got on a seam of some type. The track has a lot of little cracks and seams and things like that. It's a little rough surface-wise. It's a fun track, but it's got a little few undulations and roughness. I guess they're going to address those the next time we go back. Yeah,
I guess they were talking about it on the broadcast a little bit on the Greg and Jay. They were talking about like the lip or something of the curbing.
Yeah, Cameron actually mentioned it straight away for the first session. I remember that now. He went out and says, "Hey man, there's something." He goes, "Turn one. It's got a little sketchy. There's a little drop off right there." I said, "Oh really?" I go, "It wasn't there for the test?" He goes, "I don't remember it being there for the test." So we kind of went with it, and he was just being careful in that area, but I think it caught Jake out a little bit. And the runoff there is kind of rocky, almost like, Big Willow. You remember when we went around in a rental car? So it's lumpy and rocky. So, yeah, I did a number on our bike. It pretty much destroyed it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty done. We didn't bend any forks. We didn't do what Kyle did. I mean, he broke his swing arm off and did all kinds of stuff the first day.
Yeah, Kyle's was pretty much a yard sale for.
That was a total yard sale. It looked like ours from UMC that Josh Heron did in 18, where it broke.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go into that, but I was going to go into it later. But let's talk about it now. I mean, the track. Yeah. When we were there, even in the rental car, we were like, "Dude, this place is kind of gnarly." Right. Yeah. And all the little spots that we thought were going to be gnarly ended up being gnarly. Right. Like seemed like a lot of crashes in that turn one chicane. And then a few crashes in the other faster places too, which is, man.
Yeah. all these tracks, as they've been around for years and years, and they keep refining them to fit motorcycles. And I think this is going to be the case with this track. Hopefully we go back a bunch of times, because it's a fun track for a rider. It's very technical. And so I think, I mean, we're first through fifth at that track. So
Right.
you use almost the full gearbox. It's almost like a mini RoadAmerica, let's say, because you're using the gearbox really aggressively there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a track we should go back to, but I think they need to tune it up a little bit. Like, for instance, the turn one, what you call turn one is really, they didn't have a number for it. It was just turn chicane, you know, and so they could either do away with that, you know, push the start finish all the way to where the chicane starts and go straight into turn one.
Right.
Because turn one's more set up for a multiple bike entry, where the chicane doesn't really have a multiple bike entry, and we're too close to it. So as you start, you all bunch up, and the guys in the back of the field are still accelerating.
Right.
You know, so then they're doing a panic stop because everyone stacks up in there. And that's exactly what happened in race one of the Superbike race.
Yeah.
You know, the other option is they back the whole start finish almost back to where the last turn is.
Right.
If the last bike is almost into the last turn, and then you have the whole straightaway to get to terminal velocity and then brake, right? So then everyone will be more in line. But I think the first option probably a little bit better for a start.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. I mean, when we were there, I remember the MotoAmerica people were trying to figure out where they were going to put start finish, right? So
yeah, they took a shot at it. I would say they probably missed it by a bit.
yeah, who's that leaving the shop?
I don't know. Somebody leaving or coming.
I recognize that noise.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, why do you think there was so many crashes? I mean, I don't think there's been an injury roster on a MotoAmerica weekend like that in ever.
You know, I don't know. I think that maybe because a lot of people didn't know the track. I think that the runoff's a little rough. You know, there's grass there, but it's got a lot of rocks and things of that nature. So I think when someone crashes there, then there's got to be some bone breaking equipment out there, you know.
Dude,
and I think I don't know how many people crashed. I didn't really pay much attention to it, and I don't know how many people got injured. I didn't pay much attention to that either, because we're kind of focused on our program.
yeah.
We had one
I mean,
crash.
I just saw Road Racing World posted up this kind of abbreviated injury report. I mean, I think there was still a few more people that weren't included in this, but I mean, you know, it tore up some equipment and it tore up some bikes. I mean, let's see here. Alex Dumas in that turn one thing broke his elbow or something.
I don't know. I'll take all that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
So, because if you have 4 or 5 people on that list,
Right.
is that any different than any other weekend where people get banged up?
I don't know. I mean, I don't remember a weekend where that many people got that messed up.
I mean, I don't know. You have to look at the stats. I don't know the stats. So
Yeah.
is it
I mean,
10
I'm
people
looking
at
at
this place?
I'm looking at dislocated shoulders. I'm looking at broken ankles, left femur, lacerated liver, a broken arm, you know, and then obviously some head injury stuff. And then, you know, like Kyle couldn't continue because he didn't have any more spares or whatever. But
yeah, he stacked up in turn one on the second crash, and then he crashed it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Much like our guy did, you know. Yeah, again, I don't know if that's just because of road racing, or that's because people didn't know the track that well,
right,
or there wasn't that much room for error on the racetrack. You know, there's some sections where you're turning different than the track is laid out, let's say, if you want to put it that way,
right,
where your line is not consistent with the track surface.
Oh, definitely.
You know, so you're running wide in some areas where it looks like, oh, you should be apexing here, and then you cut it back in and late apex and things like that. So you're turning the track into something that it's not laid out like. So I think some people maybe get caught out with that, and then they get off, and then, you know, they fall down, and
I mean,
things happen.
I sat and watched, and literally I watched a couple of people crash exactly where Ken Hill told us they would crash in the car drive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're right. I think it could be that people were trying to be fast in a hurry, and they didn't know the track, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the COVID thing kind of screws everything up. But if I was running MotoAmerica, let's say, I probably want to have an official test wherever there's a new racetrack. Something of 2 days, not just you know, a Thursday before the event. I think that's a little too rushed for most teams. But you know, some guys did really well that have been there actually before on production bikes. I think Matthew Schultz, for instance, or I think one of his mechanics cornered me. He says, "Hey man, every time I see you with Dustin on that little talk chat you guys do, you keep calling him Schultz. It's not Schultz, it's Skoltz." Hear that, Frank? I called him the right name. Is it Skoltz?
Stoltz.
Yeah, I think a Sergeant Schultz, like, you know, from way back TV.
Yeah, I mean, I know Cam calls him Skoltzy, right?
Skoltzy.
Skoltzy.
I've heard Schultzy, Skoltzy, Schultz.
Maddie. I've heard of Maddie. Well.
Yeah, you know, he picked it up pretty fast. You know, I think he went really good.
A tall, like gorilla-sized dude ripping. You know.
Yeah. So anyway, he got going pretty good, but I guess he'd been there before on a production bike. But that really doesn't count compared to being on a race bike.
Right. Yeah, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close. Okay, so you know, going back into the big crash, you know, Kyle had that nasty one and just basically rode off that motorcycle. And you know, you've kind of been in that situation before. I mean, you mentioned it, right, at UMC with Heron a couple of years ago. I mean, the way that the pictures of Kyle's bike reminded me of that. And you know, you've been on that side of the small private team with not a lot of spares. Like, what do you advise a guy like that to move forward, you know?
Well, I mean, you have to have some, I guess as they used to say, intestinal fortitude, you know?
Yeah.
You remember that term?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you just gotta man up and keep on trucking. That's it. That's all you can do. Just pick up the pieces and put it back together. Keep on trucking. There's so many hours in a day, use every single minute of it.
Right. So it's use every single minute of it, but in the future, maybe, you know, bring some more spares or something, or.
I don't know. I don't know what his situation was. I mean, he basically destroyed one bike completely, and then I don't know how bad it was in the second crash. But if it's a one-off race, they aren't back to back, then you think, okay, well, if I go there and have one crash, I should be able to put it back together.
Right.
But having two crashes, and I don't know how bad his bike was the second go around. I think maybe they just ran out of patience. I don't know what they.
I mean, I can remember when you guys had to pack it up, right? And UMC, it's because like you only had one wiring harness, you know?
Yeah, no, that turned the bike into a complete noodle. I mean, that whole season was all last minute. You know, we got the bike in March or something like that. I mean, we put the bike together a week before we went to the first round and didn't even really make it the first round because the truck broke. I mean, it was a long story. So it's definitely preparation. You know, so it all stacks up. You know, once the season gets going, especially this season, with the big delays, and all of a sudden you're going back to back to back on some of these races. I mean, we have a week between. For instance, we're here for, let's say, 4 days, and we're off to New Jersey. So everything we stacked up at the last event, we gotta rearm, you know, and you know, reload and go to New Jersey, because we're after New Jersey's Barber. So if we go with what we had left, and we have a bad weekend at New Jersey, we won't make Barber, you know, or we'll be really screwed for Barber.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, Kyle's program kind of strikes me as you know, he somehow gets sponsors to go each weekend or whatever. And I know he's had a few crashes this year. So, I mean, maybe he's kind of, because the weekends are so close together, he hasn't had time to get the parts needed. I mean, I know you've struggled with getting some parts as well, right?
Well, anything coming from Europe has been a real struggle.
Yeah.
So if you want radiators, you want brakes, you want wheels, I mean, all that stuff is kind of slowed down so dramatically. Right. And if those guys are even in full business, they probably have a pretty big backlog with World Superbike starting up, you know, in full bore. They're going back to back, and MotoGP's back to back. So all the same people that we use for radiators, for, you know, like MB, for instance, you know, they're doing MotoGP and World Superbike stuff.
Right.
And so for us to put in an order, you know, or Akrapovic or whatever, it's like, you know, seriously, you guys want a pipe tomorrow? You know, so you got to be ready.
Right.
You know, that's, you know, I will say you're racing when you get to the shop, you race to the shop, and then you race to get there, and you race home, you know, so it never ends.
Exactly. So I got a couple of questions already.
Oh, okay.
Mark Thompson wants to know if Scults has one of your custom swing arms. And if
No,
so, is it the same one you guys have on the other bikes?
no, that's a suitor arm,
Oh, okay.
which is actually one of our sponsors as well. We use our clutches. And yeah, no, they've been running a suitor for the last couple of years. So that's what that is.
And then the LA upholstery guy kind of gave you props on the Hogan's Heroes reference.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Cool. Sergeant Schultz. I see nothing. I hear nothing.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go back to the action, I guess. You know, QP1, right?
Yep.
Looks like you guys kind of led 1-2 early on, and then Cam just started doing 40s all day, like just banging them out.
Yeah, he's got a talent for talent, I guess, is the way you put it. He's in the class of his own right now. I told him, I said, we're in the truck after he won, I think round 1, or I said, hey man, can you start sucking? Because I feel like I'm cheating.
You know, I mean,
you know his reply was, no.
right. I asked him to slow down and make a show of it, and he said, hell no.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So he's in the groove, you know. He's really gelled with our bike, like I've said over and over again. And you know, later on, I can show you some maybe little bits of data which shows how we kind of make the bike a little easy to ride.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of things, I think, have helped the riders out, especially Jake. I think come to terms with the bike pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, if you remember, you know, last year's bikes from Yamaha were a little more aggressive, you know, to say, if you want to put it that way. They're a rider's bike. So it took a lot of talent and a lot of patience to ride those things. And it took Garrett quite a bit of time to get used to it. And I think Jake's come along pretty quick.
Yeah, yes.
So, and that's all just, you know, making the bike super easy to ride. That's the key nowadays.
You know, one of the things watching the two guys in that session, you know, I noticed that, you know, Cam's bike wheelies in a couple of spots, but Jake's bike in that first session was just wheeling everywhere. It looked like he was kind of butting up against the wheelie control a little bit. And so the bike would come up like maybe a foot and then come back down, but it was like doing it repeatedly. So, you know, whereas Cameron's bike wasn't really doing it that much. There was one spot, and I remember doing it myself on the stock bike over there, like sort of at the top of the hill before you transition to the right, you would get a little wheelie before you would make that transition. I was watching him do that. But yeah, can you explain what's up with the difference between the two?
Well, I run the electronics on Cameron's bike. And so I guess I would say I'm probably a lot more conservative with the power and the wheel control and some of the strategies, you know, like calming the bike down. And that is also magnified by the fact that Cameron's pretty smooth. So on Jake's side, Paul runs electronics, and he's a little more, I guess the best way to put it is a little more old school. Give the rider the power he wants, let the rider kind of figure it out. And that, I think, in combination with Jake, is a little bit too much. So we're working towards calming that whole thing down. But it's, you know, Jake asks for certain things, and you know, the crew obliges most of the time. So I think that's where you see.
Well, I will say this, you know, at the end of that session, you know, towards the end of the session, both riders were in, and you know, I did notice that after Jake came back out, his bike was doing it less.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Cameron's bike was doing it less as well. So you probably dialed even more in there or whatever it is.
Well, some of that, but also they were on different gearing than we were.
Oh, okay.
And I think they were on a little shorter gearing, and they were using second gear and making more shifts in a few spots. And I think at the end, by race time, I think race 1, they were on the same gearing we were at. They just kept going heading in that direction.
Right.
And so I think that some of that's, you know, with the experience Cameron has with that particular motorcycle, it's picking the gearbox that fits it the best.
Well, I did notice him do that like bar snap thing when you guys were talking again. So I don't know what you fixed after he did that, but he went out and just like kept doing 40s. So, like,
Oh, Cameron? I don't recall what that was. I have to look at my notes.
Yeah, like he was just like he made this motion while the camera was on you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might have been a, you know, can you make sure you shake my Monster milk before I drink it? I don't know.
Yeah,
What most
yeah. That's exactly what it was. The lemonade or whatever, right?
Yeah. Make sure you shake it a little better because it hit me all at once.
You know, another thing I noticed, the difference between the two is they had a close up on Jake in that practice session, and he uses a ton of rear brake. Like, just, I mean, he has the foot on the rear brake trailing in, and he didn't let off until he flicked to the right in the chicane.
Yeah, that track is I think even Cameron used a little bit of rear brake that track, but you know, Jake comes from motocross, and so he's when he gets in an uncomfortable position, I think he uses the brake more than he should, and that's something that he's working on, and he's actually gotten a lot better at it, for sure. I mean, his lap times are right there with Cameron. I think it's just a matter of putting the whole race together, you know, and come up with a setup that suits him for the entire duration. Like, he can do the laps, he can do the fast laps, but we haven't found that race distance laps that Cameron's got, let's say.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and another thing is the announcer guys, we actually talked about it a little bit earlier during our little crash chat, but I guess there's like a bump or a dip or something in turn one. So
yeah, we're talking about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, we went around in the rental car. All I could do is just look at the data and listen to the riders. But
So-
we did, you know, that came up in the first on Thursday, but we didn't talk about it again the whole time. So
yeah,
Cameron must have found a way around there.
yeah, he seemed to be going deeper in there than just about anybody, especially off the start. You know,
Yeah,
like everyone else was kind of braking, and it's like he didn't really brake until he flicked to the right. In the race.
When you say turn one, are you talking about the chicane, or are you talking about?
Yeah. Like
Oh, okay, that's different. I keep thinking you're talking about turn one.
Yeah, well, the first corner that they hit is the chicane. So
yeah.
chicane.
They never numbered that corner. They just called it chicane.
Right.
And so we didn't even refer to it anymore, other than turn 1 and 2 is that fast left after you get out of chicane. Yeah.
So Superbike Jake wants to know, is attack quote made in the USA?
Of course, 100%.
Like, well, you're sitting right where all that stuff is made, right on the other side of that wall, or those fancy.
Yeah, no Chinese stuff here, man. Sorry. Sell plenty of stuff to Chinese people.
Yeah, I don't think
a lot of Chinese customers. We just don't buy from China.
Right. Well, there's your answer, Jake.
Yes.
I think you already knew the answer to that. Okay, so and then the practices were weird too, because usually there's like 2 qualifying practices and then a super pole, right? But this time it looked like there was just a Superbike free practice in between the super pole and the Q1. Is that right?
Well, it's always been first day on Friday is QP1, QP2, which is qualifying practice 1 and 2, where you do your laps, which gets you in the super pole.
Right.
But then and then on Saturday morning, there's a free practice.
Right.
Before super pole. It's basically shake down the bike before super pole, and you get a chance to do one more change there.
Right.
But then they put out a bulletin not that long ago, said that that's a time practice as well for the super stock guys.
Okay.
So I don't know how that affects us, but it doesn't really matter. We're always going for the best we can do every session anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was weird. I've watched every session, right? And I didn't see a qualifying practice 2. So maybe I'm crazy, but and I also thought it was weird seeing like all those super stock guys out there with you guys. So A lot of those guys ended up on the grid, which was cool. So
Yeah, it was a big grid. I was
yeah.
really, during the warm-up lap, I'm like, man, this grid's forever long. I'd have been, I don't know how many people were there. I'd be like close to 30, which is really big.
Yeah, so pretty much you guys in Superbike free practice, because of the super stock guys and the pace or whatever. I mean, obviously, I think Jake had the top spot for a little bit, and then Cam does what Cam does and kind of just edged out, and then right towards the end, Skoltzy kind of edged out Jake, and but it was still cool seeing you guys ripping out there with the super stock guys, and I think they did a mile an hour comparison at that point on the straightaway between the stock 1000 guys and the Superbike guys. And it was like 7 or 8 miles an hour on that short straight. So
it's hard to say because it depends on the drive you get out of that, because that straight's not that long. It's about 100 and I expect a mile per hour, about 165.
Yeah.
Something like that. But the speed trap was in the braking or real close to the braking zone.
Okay.
So depends on if you broke right at the speed trap and broke really hard initially, your mile per hour wouldn't show up as fast. Or if you broke before it, your mile per hour wouldn't show up as fast. So if you were braking prematurely or you're braking super hard, your trap speed would. Now, if you decide just to overshoot the chicane completely, your mile per hour would be crazy fast.
Right.
Because you stay on the throttle past the speed trap. So you got to take all the speed stuff with a grain of salt, that track.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then, so let's, I guess, talk about oh, you know what? I have another fan question here. From Duffy Gaver, being a goon basically, but he says, "Hey, Richard, can you just go ahead and build a third bike for Heron so we could have another guy competing at the front?"
Josh is doing a little better on that BMW.
Yeah, man, he's getting there. Like he's getting there.
I mean, he's beating a national champion there, Tony.
Yeah.
So I mean, Josh is a national champion as well.
Yeah.
A couple times, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and Josh, yeah, it just takes budget, takes manpower.
Like I said, it was a goon question, but I had to ask it because
Is Duffy going to sponsor Josh, or what's going on there?
You'd have to ask Duffy on that. I don't know what kind of money the former Navy SEAL or whatever has, but
well, if he's a former Navy SEAL, he can go out and find money the hard way or the easy way. It depends on how you want to.
Dude, he asked me for my lunch money. I'm giving it to him.
Yeah, that's about it.
Scary. Okay, so let's see. Let's talk about Super Pole.
Okay.
It looked like it was going to be the Cam show right there at the end, and then he blew the chicane. What happened?
Yeah, I think he brain farted. I think he saw the 39.7 pop up on the dash, and he's like, "Cool, I got this," and he went straight.
So crazy. I mean,
all he did was attempt to turn, and then I think it would have been okay, but didn't quite turn at all.
Right.
Just went straight.
Yeah. I mean, I watched, and you could see the lap, and it's like, when he's flicking to the right, getting on the straightaway, the time looked like it was 2 seconds faster than the other guy they were timing before. I was like, holy shit, this is gonna be like a 30 something. And sure enough, it was. And then he blew the chicane. They're like, oh, they're taking it back.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, it messes up your next lap.
Right.
So you lose the lap you just did, and you lose the next lap. So if you're on a qualifying tire, you basically just threw away the whole qualifying tire.
Yeah, and the checkered flag came out like 30 seconds after that. So
yeah, there was no chance.
Like he could have pulled it together and gotten another one, right?
No.
So was Gagne shocked that he got pole?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he would have got P2 anyway if that lap would have counted. So right. I think that the guys are doing really good, and so I don't think he was shocked. I think he probably wanted to get the pole by himself. He was definitely had his head down. He was trying.
Dude, he did a 40.6. That's fast.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's fast.
That's really fast.
Yeah.
you know, again, the Super Bowl sesh, same thing. Like the bike doesn't do a lot of wheelies anymore. Like any wheelies that you were doing in the early morning, like was all gone. And what's weird about the dude is that it's like it looks like he's going so slow. Like, I mean, how the fuck does he go so fast while looking so slow?
How the what? How's he? You know, he surprised me a couple times because one lap when he went to P1, it was all white. You know, like every sector was white. It wasn't magenta or red or whatever you want to call that color that pops up. And then he gets P1. I'm like, how did he do that? I look at Lee and I go, how's that happen? How's the math work on that when he didn't do any fast sectors? You know, but I think he's just consistent. He ties them all together and he can pull that off. And yeah, sometimes I think he's coming in when he's actually on a fast lap because he does make the bike look smooth. So I have to look a lot closer at the video to see how hard he's actually riding. And he's actually riding pretty hard.
Well, I mean, clearly he's riding hard. I mean, the bike is, like, if you really watch close, the bike is doing stuff. But I mean, man, if you look at him by itself, I mean, it looks like he's just out there, just gonna go get some coffee.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just don't know how he does that. Like, I just don't know how he does that. I don't think anybody else does either.
Well, if you go way back in the day, I mean, Wayne Rainey was like that, right? Mr. Smooth.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
On the 500s.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's kind of a Rainey-esque type.
Yeah, totally.
Chandler type, you know. Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about race one, I guess. Before the red flag now, man, Cam, you know, the light came out or whatever, they took off, and going into the chicane, Cam just kind of hung Jake out to dry a little bit.
Yeah, he didn't make the back shift to first.
Huh?
He didn't make the back shift to first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was the first time I think anybody had raced into the chicane, right?
Right.
And so he got in there and it's like, oh, second gear, okay, bend left, come out of there. Oh crap.
Right.
You know, and everyone stacked up a little bit, and then Jake went wide and all that, you know. So it was just a flubs.
Yeah, and then, you know, then obviously the red flag stopped it, and you guys had to kind of start over.
Yeah.
But they took a bunch of laps away. I mean, it seemed. I think when we were at the Ridge, Nicole was talking about this. I didn't realize this, but they're trying to get the races in a certain window of time.
So they do the same amount of laps.
Say that again.
So yeah, so if you have a certain load of fuel, they're trying to maintain that same load of fuel, let's say.
Right.
And so I think they turned into a 13 lap race.
Correct.
It was a 17.
Yes.
So that they count the next parade lap, warm up lap, and in lap. So that takes 3 off right there.
Right.
Plus the in lap from the original start, because you had 1 lap and an in lap. So that's 4 off. So
during the red flag, what are you guys allowed to do to the bike while you're waiting to get back out? Like, are you allowed to change tires?
Whatever you want, whatever you want, except change tires.
Oh, okay.
You can do whatever you want. Plug in, change the data. I mean, change the settings, change suspension bits, change the shock. You can do whatever you want. Just don't change the tires.
That makes sense, I guess. I mean, you only did 1 lap, right? Not even a lap.
Yeah, you know, but in the old days, we could use as many tires as we want.
Right.
But now it's you have a certain amount of tires and you can't change a tire during the race.
How many sets of tires do you have allotted per rider per weekend?
I think it used to be 10 rears and a certain amount of fronts, and now I think they just give you a certain amount of stickers. I think it's 15 or 16 stickers or something. I don't even know because I don't do the tires. You know, I give between Will and Lee, they figure out the tires, and we always do a certain routine. We do this session, we put a tire on at the end, and then we carry that tire over and put a tire on the end. So the whole strategy of using tires is pretty much baked in. I think everyone does basically the same thing, and you always end up with enough tires.
Yeah.
you always end up with a sticker or two left over.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. So, okay, on the restart, Cam gets the whole shot, and Jake ends up in third behind Bobby, but then kind of runs down Bobby, passes him in that carousel thing.
Yeah.
And it was like the Cam and Jake show there for most of the race, right?
Yeah, 7 or 8 laps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what was interesting is, just like you said earlier, Jake definitely has found something. I mean, he matched Cameron's time the first couple laps there, 40 point something, 40.7, I think. And it just seems like Cameron was able to do that over and over and over and over and over again, just bang him out like that. And after a while, it seemed like Jake had a problem, maybe a little bit more than halfway through.
Yeah, he destroyed the front tire. Yeah, so he said he can push the front tire anywhere at will on the right side, I do believe. Was it the left side? Left side of the tire. So that carousel turn, all that. He was using a softer compound than Cameron had.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you remember how abrasive that track was? If you actually walked on the track, it was like pretty abrasive.
Yeah.
So the temperature on the track just had fell off a little bit, and it just was a little too cold for that.
Okay.
For that soft tire to not get shredded, and it just shredded like it was a cheese grater to one side of the tire, and he couldn't hang in the pace. But he was right there. Half the race, he was clicking off the 40s.
I started noticing it on lap 7 because he goes into the chicane and he had the thing all backed in and was out in the red paint before he tipped into the left. I was like, man, what's going on with that dude? And then
I don't know if that had anything to do with the front tire, but yeah, for sure it was a problem.
And then 3 laps to go, he started going backwards, and Bobby and Maddie were in front of him. So I didn't know what it was. I mean, Jake's had a few issues already this year between brakes and clutch, so I was like, I didn't know if it was the clutch or whatever. They said on Sunday that Jake's deal was the front tire. So I mean, obviously you guys saw the thing when it came back in the pits. Like, apparently Dunlop took it to figure out what happened.
Yeah, they cut it down. It was just like I said, it was just the track was a little too cold for that softer compound, and it just ripped the rubber right off the top surface. And then by the time one does that, you get this graining on the tire, and then there's no grip. It's just like rolling on the marbles out in the edge of the track. That's what it feels like.
Kind of hard to be aggressive when you got no grip on the front.
Yeah, I mean, the rear was fine and everything else was fine. It just had no grip on the front. So for race 2, use the green tire, what we call the green tire 129 compound, and that held on for the whole race, no problem. Even Bobby used that red tire, but I think the Suzuki might have been a little bit easier on it, or Bobby was a little bit easier on it because his hand was messed up.
Right.
He was able to make that thing go, but I'm not sure if they used that tire in race 2 or not.
So race 1, it still ended up being a Yamaha 1-2, right? I mean, last lap, Schulte just hucked one in there in Lombard Street or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sketchy to me, but he got it done.
You got it done.
Yeah.
That's racing, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw quite a few passes in that area where I didn't think that was going to happen. I mean, even on the little bike class, I mean, I think I saw Rocco do that a couple of times. So it's like, man, people are just hucking this stuff in there and hoping it works out.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty cool place to pass, actually. There's a little bit of,
it looked impressive.
Yeah, just the exit's a little sketchy with a wall there, but
yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the entry's okay. We got plenty of room for the entry.
Right. Yeah. So that was good. I mean, the Schultz's team is Attack sponsored team, so still kind of a win for the team, for the Attack program either way, right? So
yeah, they've been using our stuff, and they've been doing better with our stuff than what they had last year. So the homemade stuff, as I call it.
Yeah, I mean, there's this saying, right? Cheap shit is still shit.
Pretty much, it's free.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they're, you know, that stuff's gone now and good to go.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I am stoked for, and I was kind of bummed that I forgot to bring it up last time, but during the last race weekend, I remember texting you like, come on, Richard, give Cameron the wheelie button, man. And then the next day you gave him the wheelie button. I noticed he made use of it on Saturday, so that was kind of stoked.
Yeah, I get pretty focused on the racing aspects of it, and not so much the show on the cool down lap. So yeah, so if you look at his lap times, I think he was 2 seconds slower on the final lap because he was scrolling for the wheelie button. And that track doesn't have a lot of space, you know, to be scrolling and searching on the dash. Yeah, so you found the wheelie off. You know,
Yeah,
up the
yeah,
bus,
you know,
that was wheelie off.
at the last race weekend, you know, after the race, I sent Cameron a message and I was like, yeah, you're welcome for that wheelie button, buddy. And I sent him a shot of our text chat. So
right.
I don't know, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, he did a good one over there in Pittsburgh. He went up over that rise.
Yeah,
he did a pretty good one here too, you know, but he didn't do one in the second race though.
He didn't, yeah, he's kind of chilling out the second one, I guess. I don't know why, but
well, there's not a whole lot of room there. You know, there's only the front straight, and then you got to search for that. You know, you got to scroll for it. So you have to have the screen set up, like the selector set up on wheelies, so you can scroll up real quick. And you know, the last few turns are not exactly, you know, any room for resting and scrolling and things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about race 2. You know, one thing I noticed about race 2 is you guys didn't really get very much TV time. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
You know, you got to tell Cam to slow down so he gets on TV, man. What the hell?
Yeah, I already told him that. It doesn't work.
You know, so, I mean, half lap 7, Cam already had over 3 seconds. So,
yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's kind of made the racing super boring to watch, you know. And then, you know, the as a fan to watch the races on TV, I mean, it's kind of sad when it's like the battle for 5th is like the most exciting part of the race.
That was happening in MotoGP right before Marquez got hurt. Yeah, so I don't know what to tell you on that one, other than, you know, we keep trying to improve the motorcycle and the rider keeps riding hard. So
yeah, I mean,
can't help that part.
You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's just,
I think everybody else got to step
up their game or whatever. I mean, I'm kind of bummed that Bobby's able to go so fast with that broken hand, and it seems like if he wasn't injured, he probably would have been right there with you guys and made a show of it.
He wasn't injured at the beginning of the season.
No, he wasn't.
What happened then?
I don't know.
No, either. So was woulda, coulda, shouldas in this sport.
100%, man.
Only if.
You're right, man.
Only if Jake's tire didn't get screwed up, he would have beat Cameron. And only if. Only if.
Oh, man. I'm getting a text message from my wife telling me not to say that it was boring to watch.
I mean, it is kind of. I agree, but you know, we're doing the best job we possibly can, and we're going to keep our head down, and we're not going to let up until the season's over. We got a few more weeks, and the season's going to be over.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's a bummer too. You know what is good about this past weekend, and you know, in our chats, I've been kind of, you know, calling out the Altus guys, like, come on, guys, you need to go Superbike racing, like for real. And you know that Cam Peterson guy is going pretty good on a super stock bike in the Superbike class.
Yeah,
that's pretty neat. And then the Celtic guys, they've kind of ditched the super stock class altogether, and you know they've been having a couple of guys sub for PJ, and they brought out that Ducati Zanetti guy.
Yeah,
that dude was going good, man.
Yeah, for I don't know how much he's ridden U.S. Dunlops, probably not at all. Yeah. I'm thinking.
Right.
You know, because I don't think anybody races them in Europe, because our tires are made in Buffalo, New York. You know, so I'm not sure how much of those tires actually get passed around the world. Probably not many.
Right.
And being a World Superbike rider, he probably rides strictly Pirellis. You know, like World Superbike test rider for Ducati.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, I think he was doing pretty decent. He had some off-track excursions as well.
He
Every
did.
time I turned around, he was out there testing the gravel. He didn't
Yeah,
fall down, but he was definitely out there.
yeah, I think he did fall down on the last lap in the last race, but I think it was a more of a mechanical issue. Yeah, his bike was smoking like crazy.
Yeah, I saw that. His bike was smoking, and
Yeah,
I guess they
I don't know
finally
if
bit
they
him.
black flagged him or what, but man,
They kind of let it go for a
did
while.
they?
I was surprised. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it went a few laps. It would stop, but it had a pretty good amount of smoke, and eventually, I guess it bit him.
yeah. I mean, I saw Cam Peterson was right behind him, battling with him, and then when it started smoking, he backed way off, gave him
Yeah.
a pretty wide berth.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, and I mean, you've been on track with when that happens, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you want to be like, hey, but you also don't want to hurt yourself.
No,
So,
you go to track day and you smell the antifreeze.
right.
That's always exciting. Like,
Yeah.
I smell antifreeze.
Like, why do
I
you
think I
smell?
should get off the racetrack before I end up falling down somebody else's antifreeze.
It's been a while since that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Happened to me at Fontana once, almost bit me.
yeah, mine, the oil thing was, a couple months in a row. Do you remember Mike Gephardt?
Rings a bell. I'm sure he's one of
Yeah,
our
Mike
customers.
Gephardt had these like hybrid FZR 1000 chassis or FZR 1000 motor in a YZF 750 chassis.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why I remember.
Yeah, and that thing he would blow the thing up every weekend, and 2 weekends in a row I was behind him on the front straightaway and chunks of piston were coming at me, It's like, oh.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, it's, seeing that smoke is, man, it's scary because you don't know if the guy's going to go off. And, then it seems okay when he leans to the other side. So you're like, oh, well, maybe it was kind of like the overfilled oil thing like you guys were having, So, yeah, I don't know. But I think he ended up on the ground on the last lap there. So,
Bummer.
so yeah, you guys, 1-2 finish for race 2. That was cool. Jake seemed pretty happy on the podium. Cameron too, but Jake especially, and I guess it's because you guys had such a hard time on Thursday.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right. So let's see. So we talked before about maybe doing a little overlay to kind of compare notes between the two guys. I think you've got something in up your sleeve there to show us, kind of compare the difference between the brake pressure, right?
Well, one of the areas where Cameron was really fast, and that's the use of the front brake and then use of the front tire, right? So
right.
I think where that showed off is where it showed was, remember those turns you call Lombard Street, the last little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see if I can share a screen here. Let's see. Is it this one? I think so. All right. You see it?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Okay. So this section here, can you see down here where it's like red and green?
Yes.
Okay. So the green would be, that would be Jake. And the red would be Cameron. Okay. So they're both going through this one section. So if you look over here, these are brake pressures.
Okay.
You see how Jake applies his brake really aggressive and really hard initially going into that section, and then he releases quite a bit, where Cameron holds quite a bit longer, and then he's searching for grip over here. Do you see where the arrow is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can also see where coming down the hill, where Jake applies quite a bit of brake and kind of stops his momentum right in this section. And then again for the right-hander, where Cameron doesn't apply any brake whatsoever.
Wow, that's weird. I mean,
you follow what I'm saying? So that section Cameron was super fast at. And then you can also see here the lean angle. And you can see where red again is Cameron. You can see where his lean angle gets a little further down there, especially on that left-hander coming down the hill. So his approach is a little different. His braking is a little different, and his use of the momentum on the motorcycle is quite a bit different. Like he doesn't even touch a brake at all, where Jake's still applying over here. See these little bar graphs here?
Yes.
You can see where Jake's applying 3 bar of pressure. That's a pretty decent amount. Where Cameron's just got a little bit of residual in there. You see over here.
Yeah.
And then over here also, you can see the throttle application, right?
Yes.
So over here is where, then this is what makes the bike a little bit easier to ride. You see over here, the grips go to 70%.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah.
But the throttle itself is only at 48% or 41%, right? So this scaling is a little off because it only says it shows 15. But if you look at the bar itself, these numbers down here,
yeah,
kind of see what the throttle is doing versus the grip. So the fact that we don't allow the bike to have a bunch of power.
Jake's applying a ton more throttle than Cameron is, and
using more brake.
Yes. Okay. So he's more aggressive on the throttle on the downside.
Yeah. So he's open throttle, heavy brake, open throttle, heavy brake. So he's very digital. But Cameron, I guess you could say, is very analog.
Wow, that's an insight right there, man.
Yeah. So right here, I mean, these sessions go by pretty fast, and you're always trying to diagnose stuff, and you're into your own little world. But I'd like to work a little more with helping Jake improve some of these different areas. But sometimes they don't come to me until after I've had a chance to look at the data.
Right.
Like after the weekend's over almost.
Right.
So I try to leave it up to their data guy, but you can kind of see again, green over here, or how much throttle Jake is applying right there.
Yes.
See, that's his hand. So he's applying quite a bit more throttle, but he applies quite a bit of brake instead of flowing through that last section. And that last section, Cameron was just killing everyone. To keep momentum, like good amount of momentum in a small section like that is pretty important if you're getting that good drive onto that straightaway. And then you can see here how soon, like again with the throttle, this is a throttle trace.
Right.
Like if I clip onto that, you can see right here, Cameron's already got the grip open.
Yeah.
And Jake's still off. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, so those are certain things that I can see in the difference of the riders, and all of it is fine tuning, right?
Yeah.
So and also, when you do a stab on the forks, you have to sometimes use a little more spring pressure and things like that to maintain the chassis. And
so, I mean, it looks like Jake is really, really aggressive on the brakes, but then it's like he almost immediately lets right back off.
Yeah, he's super stab right there.
Yeah.
He's been doing that, grabs a bunch straight away, and then he's got to release because a lot of times, the rear will pop up real quick.
Right.
And so then he's got to release so he can turn.
Okay.
Where if you feed the front end in just a little bit more subtly, you can plant the front tire and use it to turn without losing grip on the rear.
And you know what? I mean,
and then another area too, if you want to look up here. So this graph here is the throttle.
Okay.
And this graph here is the RPM. Those little, you can see where the RPM is carrying a little differently.
Yeah.
Red being Cameron again, and green being Jake. Jake kind of short shifts it. So I don't know if it's wheeling or if he has a different line, but Cameron lets the RPM carry out. And then right here, Cameron grabs the back shifts, bang, bang, one after the other.
Okay.
You see that little blip right there?
Yeah.
And that little blip too, that's the back shifts, bang, bang. He grabs 2 of them at once. Where Jake spaces them out a little bit. He's got this one, and then he grabs the next one. You see it a little bit later and spaces them out a little bit. And so this grabbing them both really quickly like that allows the chassis to settle down before you get to the apex.
Right.
So then you can keep, again, the contact on the rear tire so you can get right back to loading that rear tire so you can continue the corner.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I noticed when we were there, you know, and Josh Hayes actually pointed this out to me because we stood down there at the bottom watching, and you know, Cameron, it seemed like Cameron kind of, I want to say he was getting to second on the way down, but he would kind of hold, it was almost like he would hold a constant throttle into the left, and he wouldn't drift out a whole lot. And I mean, you could barely see or hear any kind of movement in the throttle in that little section before he flicked onto the straight. And whereas Jake, it sounded like he was super hard accelerating, and then he'd have to brake pretty hard at the bottom on the left, and he would run wider. So I don't know, man. It seems like the data supports that same stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Cameron wasn't even touching the brake between the right and the left.
Right.
You would just go right, like you would brake a little bit into the right-hander because you'd accelerate down the hill, right? Because you have pretty good momentum. That thing's a pretty good steep drop, so you got to slow down a little bit, and then it flattens out. So for the flat part, he would just get a little bit of a run into that left-hander, and then just coast into that left-hander and maintain lean angle and open and concentrate on opening the throttle.
Right.
Instead of blunting his momentum.
Superbike Jake wants to know what software that is that
that's Morelli. It's called WinTax. That's the analysis software from Morelli.
So basically, Jake, you can't have it.
Well, if you race Superbike, you could buy it.
Yeah.
Comes with a dongle.
You're not going to use that on your stock R1, Jake.
Yeah. You could. There's a lot of good data systems out there. Actually, Morelli makes some customer level stuff, you know, like for the average guy that you can plug into your bike. It just takes a little bit of work to install it, but then you can use WinTax, same software to analyze the data. And it's another tool. It's like if you give a guy a wrench, doesn't make him automatically a Superbike mechanic or an aircraft mechanic. He's just a guy with a wrench.
Right.
You know, so you can give that package to anybody. All of a sudden, they're not like data experts. You know, it takes a little while to learn it, and it takes a little while to set up all the overlays and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, if it looks all pretty pictures like that from the jump, we're good, right?
Actually, you know, when I first got that system back when I was helping Heron, it came with all that stuff already pre-built. You know, so that's part of that World Superbike rule, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where they have to give you a fairly developed package straight out of the box. So that was really made it pretty easy. That's why we had a podium the first outing.
Right. So, you know what? Let's talk about a couple other things. I mean,
okay.
You guys are, first off, you guys are racing in Jersey next. Is that right?
Jersey, yep.
So, you know, one coast to the other and back.
Yeah.
Jeez.
No, we're going to go to Jersey and then 2 days off and over to Barber. So heading towards, you know, go down the Appalachians there, all the way down to Alabama.
Good barbecue, though.
What's that?
Good barbecue, though, right?
Yeah, barbecue sauce doesn't agree with me anymore.
No?
No,
well, no, you know, it's a different kind of barbecue down there, right? Like you get that.
Texas got the good barbecue.
Yeah. Come on now.
Yeah.
So back to back then, huh? Jersey and then Barber.
Yeah,
back
Jersey
back.
Barber. That's why it's so important for us to come to the shop and work for the next 4 days.
So are you doing any kind of special hot sauce for the engines or?
No.
No?
No, there's no time for development. That's why it's like I said, the whole COVID thing, stacking up all the races between there, you can't go develop something at the racetrack. All that's going to do is bite you when you get there. So you show up and you fine tune. There's more to be gained by showing the riders those little intricacies, you know, like, oh, don't brake here and open the throttle there and fine tune all of your settings than there is to add more power. Like I showed you on the graphs there. I mean, the guys can open the throttle all the way and they don't get full power anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, good luck next week, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk a little smack. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've seen quite a bit of chatter online, and I also saw like a press conference about the 600 class.
Oh yeah.
And there's quite a bit of chatter one way or another about the 636 in the class. And go.
Okay. So, since I think that allowing that bike in that class, which they don't do in World Supersport, was just basically a way for them to fill the grid, because that bike is just it's an overboard bike. It's just like showing up to a Supersport race with a millimeter over or a stroker and saying, yeah, I'm legit. But that, just because it comes from the factory that way, doesn't make it legit. That it's so easy to make power with 636. Now, with that said, power isn't everything around a racetrack. But on a 600 class, when there's limited power to start with, power makes a difference. If it was another 36 cc's in our class, I'd be like, so what? Because we can't put the power down the ground anyway. Like you talked about wheelie control and traction control and all these different things, trying to dumb down the bike. That's what we're doing. But in that class, I think it gives you definitely an unfair advantage. I was always surprised as to, why no one's really ventured out and put a little bit of work in that thing. And obviously, Escalante and those Honos guys have done that. And nothing to against Escalante. I think he's riding really good. But for sure, that bike's a cheater bike for that class.
Yeah, keeping it real as always, Richard.
Yes, it is. It just is. I mean, it's just unless they limit it somehow for the CCs, I don't think adding even 10 pounds to it is going to make any difference. That they have to limit the RPM on that bike, and I don't know if MotoAmerica is really set up to be like the overlords of rules. It's better to have more open stuff. It's easier to police, like your bore stroke, things like that. So and that's the thing in World Supersport, right? So they have a 600 class, and they use the ZX6RR, or whatever they call that thing now, not the 636.
Right.
And that's what it is in World Supersport. So
now, the counter argument to that is obviously the lap times, right? I mean, those guys, none of those guys are touching the lap times that they were even doing last year. So
yeah, I don't know how to explain that other than maybe the talent's not there. I don't know. The guys are going slower. I mean, why are they going slower? That doesn't make any sense. They're on the same rubber. We're going faster.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're breaking every track record.
I mean, they're not going faster or breaking lap records like they were last year. And, Sean Dillon Kelly, I mean, that dude rips, and he's won some races too, but
you're only as fast as your competition, right? So
right.
I think Bobby was in there last year, and so was who was Hayden Killam, and there's a few guys in there that were really pushing.
PJ.
And that pushes, PJ Jacobson. I mean, those are some talented guys, right?
Yeah.
So those guys, and that brings SDK up as well.
Oh yeah.
Push hard. I mean, he's got people he can race with, right? So it makes him push hard.
Right.
And so also, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Chris has got going on with the M4 guys, but maybe he's putting a lot of emphasis on the Superbikes. I'm not 100% sure. That's just a guess on my part. But when you have a big program, sometimes certain things suffer a little bit, and so it's possible that they haven't put a lot of emphasis on the 600 program. I'm not sure. Again, that's just me guessing. I just know how a team works, especially a big team with a lot of tentacles. And,
so that drama, I guess, started on Saturday in the press conference, but I've seen chatter about it for a minute on all over social media and stuff, right? For longer than that, all season basically. And I've always been like, let's have more people go racing, so like I'm kind of more of a grassroots dude, and I had that argument with some riders several years ago at the club series, and it's like, come on, man, like, you really want to say no and basically close off a certain brand because it's got more CCs? And nobody really gives a shit about that bike until the guy starts winning on it.
Yeah, because it wasn't that popular, right?
Right.
Everyone was riding R6s, and they're riding like with the M4 guys, they're riding the Suzuki's. Even that bike isn't that popular either.
Right.
But the Yamaha R6 was very popular. And I always wondered, since we were a Kawasaki team way back, and even the regular 600 was super fast, makes more power than the R6 in the proper tune. And when we were in the Formula Extreme class back then, we made quite a bit of power. You'd have to really lean on some of the other bikes to get them there. I mean, it's possible, but some of that 636 came out. I was always said, man, I wonder why these guys aren't racing that thing. I mean, it's already got a CC advantage. So, but I'm with you. I mean, I'd rather see more people there, but
yeah,
they need to have some kind of balancing rules. Just like the Junior Cup, right? So Kawasaki comes out with a big bore there, a 400, and pretty much all the R3s have to go away.
Yeah.
So in that way, are you limiting another manufacturer by allowing a certain manufacturer in? Right? You're saying,
dude, why can't you guys manufacturers?
But you're saying let's bring in more manufacturers at the same time. You end up booting all the other manufacturers. They don't have a bike to play with. Why doesn't the manufacturer build a bike that plays in that class?
Right.
I mean, I know what Kawasaki's intention was. We want a mid-level bike that we can advertise as the most powerful. So what's the easiest way to do that? Let's put a stroker crank in it.
Right.
So
I heard some chatter like that about Rocco in that twins class too. They're like, oh, his SV's cheating, but they're not. The people that are saying that about Rocco, they're not realizing or whatever that Rocco is a higher caliber rider than just about every single person in that twins class.
Yeah, well, that twins class is a built
rookies cup, whatever.
Yeah.
Guy versus club guy,
isn't that twins class a builder class?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so anything goes basically, right? So
right,
build whatever they want and make the power or whatever they're going to do, get a proper rider. But the super sport class isn't supposed to be a rider's class. So having a 36cc advantage is an advantage.
Okay.
So then it's up to the series. If they want Kawasaki involved and they're going to give them a 36cc advantage, and they got to figure out how to balance the rules.
Right.
That's up to the series to figure that out. Otherwise, it'll be a Kawasaki 636 class, like what happened with a Junior Cup.
Right.
So, so when you say, hey, let everybody in essence, you're letting everybody out.
Okay. I can buy that.
Yeah. That's what it is. You can see it in the Junior Cup.
Right.
You say, oh, no, we want more bikes involved. Well, actually, you end up getting rid of every single manufacturer except for the Ninja 400.
Right. Well, I did, going back to that 600 thing, Richie Escalante got kind of taken out in the chicane off the start.
Yeah.
And I did see a little bit of kind of joking-ish chatter that, somebody gave Nissany the Karate Kid sweep the leg order.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I guess Nissany from the Altus team, he got a rather epic start off like the 4th row or whatever, and somehow managed to wipe out Escalante off the start. So
I don't believe that.
Like, somebody gave him the sweep the leg order.
I'm sure that's funny in chatter, but nobody in their right mind goes out.
Hell no, man. Hell no.
That just
doesn't want to fall down. That dude broke his arm last year. Like,
nobody wants to fall down. They don't want to get together. That chicane was just one of those turns that they're going to have to work on to make it a little safer for the start.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah.
They've talked about it. One of the MotoAmerica guys was here today, dropping off some stuff for for us to, or picking up some stuff we brought back for him. We were talking about that. Like, what do you think we should do? And the little meetings they have, and I gave him my ideas. Either you go straight or you back it up. One of the two.
Right.
Keep that chicane, but I don't think they should get rid of the chicane because it's kind of dangerous without it.
Oh man, it'd be 180 plus going into there, right?
Yeah, one loss of brakes, can't make the turn, or you're into the trees.
Yeah.
And there's an Armco before the trees.
Oh yeah, I saw that. There was air fence before it, but
Before the Armco. Well, the air fence is a nice little launching pad into the trees.
Yes. Yeah, and then, you know, after the race, I mean, obviously Richie was gutted. I mean, I don't know why they do that. I guess it's for viewer pleasure or whatever, but man, they stuck the camera in the kid's face right after he got taken out, and man, he was just absolutely gutted because he wanted to beat those guys, you know. But
well, he's got a few more opportunities.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll get his payback, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one more question. I mean, we're kind of over an hour already, so
okay,
well over an hour.
Yeah.
Jake also wants to know if you have to, quote, retune the whole bike for the differences in each track, elevation changes, and suspension, and all that. Like,
we have a baseline that's pretty good, so we kind of hover around that baseline that we learned fairly early, and the bike keeps developing in a certain direction, so we keep going that direction, but it's not massive amounts, so the bike doesn't change massively from track to track. We can pretty much probably show up with the same motorcycle every racetrack and be pretty competitive.
Okay.
And so I don't think that's the case. You know, we do work on electronics here and there. We kind of tinker with it, you know, a little more wheelie control here, a little less wheelie control there, a little more TC, that kind of thing, but it's not wholesale changes.
Right.
Yeah, the bike's pretty good, pretty much, as from a baseline.
Okay. Well, I think that's it, Richard.
Cool.
Good times. Wish you the best of luck. Safe travels to Jersey. You know, stock up on the M&Ms for Walker, I guess.
I hear you're doing a little segment with good old Chuck Giacchetto.
Yeah. You got any words of wisdom I should throw at him?
Oh, I got some words for him. I don't know if you want to.
Something about ice cream choices, I think.
Yeah, he was all into the Ben and Jerry's, and I said, dude, read the box. Way too political. He's like, what? So maybe Haagen-Dazs or something else, but not Ben and Jerry's.
That's so funny. You're not the first person that's talked to me about.
But anyway, who's the dude in Game of Thrones that had all the little whisperers and secrets and gossip? Bald dude. You didn't watch Game of Thrones?
No way, man.
A communist?
No, dude. I ride bicycles and motorcycles. I don't have time for fantasy BS.
Hey, when you fly from one track to the other, you got a couple hours to burn. You watch Game of Thrones on the plane. Anyway, so Chuck is that guy. He's got all the little inside scoop and secrets and.
Oh, dude, he's my wife would refer to him as a chismosa.
Yeah, that's the Mexican or Spanish version of that. Yes.
Yes.
So if you need some gossip, you could ask him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the first person that mentioned some kind of food topic either. There's a couple people that are like, "Oh yeah, ask him what his pre-race meal is," and that kind of stuff.
Ice cream, probably.
You know what? I guess I'll find out tomorrow.
You will. All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right, dude.
See ya.
Well, I'll see you.